Why do you say that, Father? You aren't afraid, are you?
No, but I respect some of the superstitions of others. Often they are founded in fact.
Broadcasting live from our Sanctum Sanctorum in Venice, California. This is the Sixth Sense Society. I'm your host, Krista, here with our guest host today, Matt, and of course our producer, Michael. And today we're having our first 2-hour UFO special. And we have a really wonderful panel of guests. We have Dolly Safran, who is a generational UFO contactee with lifelong experiences with gray ETs. We learned about Dolly initially through Preston Dennett, who's also here, and his book about her, Symmetry, A True UFO Adventure. And she's been on numerous shows and podcasts such as Coast to Coast and Outer Realm. And since we spoke with her, she's become co-host with Preston on a new show, The Lightgate, which I'm sure we'll talk about in the show. And then we have Preston Dennett, who was our very first UFO guest ever. And he's a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, a ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and the author of 30 books and more than 100 articles on UFOs and the paranormal. He's also appeared on numerous radio and TV programs, including Midnight in the Desert with Art Bell, Coast to Coast, and more. And as I said, he is the co-host with Dolly on Lightgate podcast. And then we have joining the show for the first time, we have Earl Gray Anderson. And he is MUFON State Director of Southern California as an executive member of MUFON's ERT, the Experience Resource Team. And he's personally investigated over 900 UFO reports and specializes in experiencer high strangeness cases, which I want to know what that means, the high strangeness word. That sounds really intriguing. He's also been on many shows as well, radio, podcasts such as Unidentified with Demi Lovato and the Travel Channel Storming Area 51 special. One thing I did want to mention too, which I thought was unusual, is he teaches an accredited course in ufology at Otis. So I think that's really cool. I guess it's UFO has really, come around to the public if you can do that now. And they all have many other talents and abilities, but we want to get started on the show soon, which is going to be roughly about human and alien contact, where it has come from, where it's going, and of course some other sort of tangent topics related to that. But before we get started, Michael has a few announcements.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to our broadcast, and I'm super excited. We've been looking forward to this show for months now, so I can't wait to get into it. We've got all kinds of great stuff coming up. Next week is Spell It Out, Krista's monthly, whatever she decides it wants to be segment, so join us for that. And you can get all the information on our upcoming shows on our website, sixthsensesociety.com, SXTH, all spelled out. And our next special, which is coming up in a couple months, is going to be a magic special. We're going to have Sandra Inman and Mavius Lynn and Brandy Williams, the author, on, and they're going to be our panel of guests for that one. So keep an eye out for that. I think that's in September. But anyway, all the information there. Check us out. If you can afford to, buy us a coffee on Ko-Fi. But most importantly, click like and subscribe and help us grow our audience. And that's really the best thing you can do for us. And we love seeing new subscribers. So I don't want to take up any more time because we have so much ground to cover today and such great guests. So take it away, Krista and Matt.
Great. Thank you, Mike. And again, welcome, Matt, to the show. And hello. Welcome all of you.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. So I thought we would just start off with just any kind of a question. And one of the things I think you need to know is that even though I've been watching Ancient Aliens for decades, I'm still really new to a lot of the UFOs. So I'm going to ask some very basic questions because I feel like there must be people like me out there too. We don't all know all the things that you know because you've been involved for decades in this. And so one of the things I was thinking about with the idea of extraterrestrial contact is I was wondering, so far, what has been the most common way that people have been contacted according to your investigations and also your experience? Do you want to start off, Dolly?
Okay. Most people are contacted from an early age, and then they watch you throughout your lifetime. And they will contact you if you're isolated and out in the middle of nowhere. they'll go directly to where the child is or the family is. Sometimes it's whole families. They will send advanced AI out first to make sure everything is copacetic while they're waiting above. They'll send down a drone to pick you up and then take you up to the craft if it's a larger craft. 9 times out of 10, it will be a larger craft waiting for you to come up. Most people don't remember the transfer. You're kind of weirded out by the time you get up, and so it goes very fast. It's instantaneous almost sometimes. They basically are monitoring the health of every human being on this planet. They have their reasons. We're suffering from too much gamma radiation for the last 80 years. It's affecting our DNA. They do healings and things like that. Some people are very good at remembering, and other people have a fear quotient, and it makes them go into an altered state of mind, like a dream state, and they only recall bits and pieces of it. But that's basically how they do it. They will show themselves outside of contact that way. The second way is they'll it's pretty much disclosure on their part. It's homespun. They'll show up at events like drive-in theaters, as Preston has taught y'all. They will go to schools. They'll go to game events and things like that. Rodeos. They love rodeos. Just different things like that. And that's about how we are all contacted.
Preston, what do you say?
I agree with all that. I think probably the most common, from a researcher's perspective, the most common experience is certainly a sighting. And I think it's about 10 or 20% of the population reports that, somewhere about around there, which is a lot. So this is a lot of people's introduction to the phenomena. But certainly, I think a lot more people are being taken on board than the general public realizes, because J. Allen Hynek was quoted as saying 1 in 40. I found that early on in my research, and I thought, no way, that's far too many. That's millions of people. I would know somebody. And of course I did. I found out that I had 4 or 5 people in my circle of family, friends, and coworkers. So yeah, a lot of people are taken on board. And that's what the Roper organization found as well, a polling organization. They found 1 in 50. So I think that's a very effective way to introduce themselves to the population. Because if we all know 40 or 50 people, well, if each person who's been taken on board or has contact talks, then everyone is going to know. But the last thing I would say is that people are contacted in many different ways, because some people can have a sighting and the ETs will talk to them. So they're having direct contact, even though this is just a sighting. Other people are taken on board. It can be just inspiration through the dream state. I have cases, and this is crazy to me, of people who received telephone calls from what they believe are ETs.
Whoa.
First time I heard, I wasn't quite sure what to make of it, but I kept getting cases, so I did research. Bud Hopkins had cases like that. His star client, Debbie Jordan Cobble. Ray Fowler reported that with Betty Andreasen. John Keel talked about it. So yeah, my point is contact comes in a wide variety of ways. And being visible to some people, others, of course, have direct face-to-face contact or are taken on board, but a lot more common than people realize, as I think Earl will probably agree.
Yes. Jack Sarfati, the guy who works for the DOD and DARPA, he received a phone call. Terry Arbogast. I was reading Jacques Vallée's most recent Forbidden Science book, which are his journals. And there's my friend Terry, and his whole story is like, boom, right there in Jacques Vallée's new journal. But I knew from Terry, he when he was a teenager, received a phone call, like a robotic-like voice, and said it was from outer space. His mother heard the whole thing. Very strange that, but this phenomenon it runs the gamut. I've found there's no one single way that people are made contact with, as Preston and Dolly were both saying. I notice a lot of generational involvement seems to be there. I know that was the case with myself. My mom had an experience when she was 16 years old with an intelligent 3 foot across, like a Foo Fighter. It was like like a ball of sparks. It was under intelligent control, came in through their porch, screened-in porch, hovered over her sister, hovered right in front of her. She got up and she ran after it, went into a cornfield adjacent to her family's house. It just sat there waiting for her, and she got there and she's looking up at it, and it hung there for a little bit, and then it popped like a soap bubble, my mom said. It wasn't ball lightning because it was interacting with her. And then I had contact myself, strangely enough. I mean, it seems like when I was born, I had a propensity for this stuff. My mom worked for officialdom. She wound up as one of Howard Hughes's personal secretaries. And she told me when I was 5 years old, when I lived in Venice, California, by the way, you guys. Yeah, Lake Street.
I know that. I know that area.
Yeah, Mom kind of gave me the disclosure number when I was 5. She later on said that she was horrified. She thought that I would forget. It's like, how do you remember that? You were just a baby. But I remember stuff. And I mean, one of my first memories is climbing up on the monkey bars in our backyard, waving at the sky. My mom yells through the kitchen window, "Who are you waving and singing to, Earl?" And I said, "The space people, Mom. I'm waving and singing to the space people." And here I am 60 years after that event, and I'm still doing the same thing. So if they want you, they get you, and they have many ways. A lot of military family involvement, I've noticed. The contact episodes can be a little more aggressive if the person is actively in the military. I think there's a lot of curiosity about our propensity to go to war with each other. I think it's disturbing to our visitors.
Wow, that means Donald Trump must be getting a lot of visits.
I've heard a couple stories. I don't know the veracity of them, but
not that he's in the military.
Well, there is a history of political leaders that have had
No.
contact or some type of, wasn't it Reagan in California going down the PCH that,
Yes,
very vividly saw a UFO. Five Symington during the Arizona case as well, who had to deny it originally, but then later on came back and admitted that, he also did see. And then, was it Carter? Yes. Carter had very vivid. Carter. Before he was president, he had stories of seeing and having contact as well.
Yeah,
There's a
I did a
Richard
study of
Nixon
that.
story.
A lot of world leaders have. President of Mexico, a couple of presidents of Brazil, a guy from Russian province actually taken on board, Ilyaminov, something like that. Governor Gilligan of Ohio as well. So I found a bunch of people, and I think most of them, for obvious reasons, don't talk about it. I mean, remember Dennis Kucinich when he went public?
Have ruined his political career. They used that against that poor guy.
Well, in Ancient Aliens, they seem to think that, I don't know an example, but some of the leaders were actually extraterrestrial in nature, and they came to help that particular time or that. And I know there's been more than one account. And then also, I like to hear your take on the idea that perhaps ETs could still appear to people as deities, because again, that's based a little bit on more of watching the Ancient Aliens, saying, well, this was actually, really misunderstood alien, and they never say no to anything. Michael always say ancient aliens always say yes. And I don't know, we always joke about that. It's always yes, but they have a point in that possibly some of it could be. And I'm just wondering what you think about, even like in modern times, could I see someone, maybe because I wouldn't be as freaked out, maybe I'm a devotee of a Hindu goddess and I see the ET in that shape. Would that be possible?
I think so.
It definitely depends on who you are at the time, what your perspective is, and your mindset of acceptance or denial. In other words, we have pareidolia in more ways than you can possibly imagine. And it is part of our psychological makeup. Our physical mind will protect you from being too freaked out so you don't go completely crazy. And it will aim you at that. And yeah, if you're thinking if you're a very religious person and you're very stayed in it and you will accept no other, you might see a religious deity in front of you, or even God, or even Jesus Christ. You might, if you're not that, if you're Mohammedan, or might see Muhammad standing there. Some people see Mary standing there. It just depends on who you are. Some people can't handle anything and they see owls and they see frogs, all different kinds of things that is directly related to us only. ET does not force you to see anything. They will bring you the truth. It's how we're responding to it.
It's our perception of being able to receive the information that filters what it is that comes through to us.
Exactly. That's something I've absolutely noticed interviewing people. People see through the lens of their own belief system. And you can see this going back in cultures. So I think that a lot of some of the past events throughout history that were interpreted perhaps as religious miracles, I would point to the Fatima sightings in, was it 1918?
Yeah, that's exactly what my mind was thinking of when she brought that up. Yeah.
Yeah, because that was, labeled as a religious miracle, but now some researchers are taking a second look at that, because if you look at the actual firsthand accounts, and they're written down, people are describing a metallic object up there. And it's got a lot of the details we hear in modern day UFO accounts. But yeah, I've talked to people. One lady I interviewed, she's like, I'm pretty sure it was a demon. I'm like, okay, well, just tell me what you saw. She said, it was on my head. It had a really thin body, a huge head, and a big red light behind it. She was in the Marriott Hotel in Woodland Hills, by the way.
There you go.
Well, it's interesting to me too, because I know, like, for humans in ourselves, we know that childhood programming up until the age of 6 has a very drastic effect on your perception of the world moving forward. So what about there's a good amount of mass sightings that have happened for children, whether it's at schools or on the playgrounds. I think James Fox did a UFO documentary he spent a decade on that recently came out called Moment of Contact, where it was about that, whether it's South America or Africa, a lot of these, usually not quite third world, but definitely out of America, where you have these massive groups of children. And in those cases, teachers as well, all seeing these crafts come in and land, and the beings actually coming out of the craft. But it's always, telepathic communication that comes, and it's usually the children that have been communicated with, which I think is interesting, because is that purposeful, so that they don't grow up with any preconceived notions that these things do not exist.
Exactly. Children are wide open. They're very psychic, and they see the truth. They hear the truth. And that is why you're contacted when you're very young. They realize that if you're given a chance to know what the truth is and be comfortable with it already, you'll eventually walk into it. And if you look at our society now, more than half of the people on this planet are very open about ET and UFOs and the things that are going on, and they're more spiritual and they're more trying to wake up. And that's because of years and years of their contact with everybody from a very young age. It's purposeful. Absolutely. Yes.
Isn't I would totally agree. You go, Earl.
Well, I noticed that so many people, they wind up finding spirituality, whether their contact episode was perceived as malevolent or benevolent, it doesn't really matter. They eventually wind up. I mean, I know there are some people that are still fear-based and feel alarmist about it, but 70% of the experiencers that we speak with and MUFON's ERT, we did a blind study. We asked these questions and said, if you could have made it stop any point, if you could make it stop, would you? And 70% of the people said, no, I wouldn't make it stop, because I would rather be in touch and know that this is happening and know. And it seems like these people are left with gifts. I mean, Jacques Vallée and Eric Davis, they call it the Vallée-Davis effect, where people that have contact start presenting some of the gifts, abilities that we usually associate with the beings themselves. It's almost like a cosmic agent.
Yeah, it's not. They don't give you these abilities. Contact means that you're opening up,
engaged,
engaged, and your own abilities are gifting you. In other words, you're developing. It's like you turn a switch on, and you suddenly, oh wow, I can do this. And it's because you start using it. That's ET's number one.
I think that's one of the main goals of ET contact is to wake people up.
Yes.
And going back to the whole children thing, because when I heard about the Rua, Zimbabwe case at Earl Elementary School, I immediately thought of the Crestview Elementary School incident, the one in Broadhaven in Wales. Of course, there was the very famous Hillsdale College incident, which, 87 students and teachers.
Westall, Australia, too.
Exactly. And so I ended up writing a book on schoolyard UFO encounters and found 100 cases from 1950 onwards all over the world, and half were at elementary schools.
Wow.
Absolutely, this is intentional, I think. I mean, it's undeniable that they are targeting schools, and because these are very low-level sightings. Usually,
I saw a UFO over at school. It was over grammar school in Winnetka. Actually,
oh, you're kidding?
No, I'm not. It was very strange. It seemed like a teachable more than anything. I mean, I felt the Oz effect, and I'm driving my car, and you can't hear anything outside. Time became weird, and there's this craft, and as long as I was like 40, 50 feet away from it, I was still under my own cognizance. I'm going, how are they hoaxing this? Where's the cables? There's no cables. There's mass tonnage sitting there over this school. You get about 30 feet away from there, and I was not in control of my own actions or thoughts. I'm not taking photos. I'm not taking video. I'm not calling MUFON. I'm not calling the newspapers. I right past that miracle because I'm late to work. I get to the 118 freeway. You know where that is here, Preston? Just about to the freeway. And then I stopped my car and I get out. I was ready to fire myself for my own position at MUFON. It's like, my God, I suck at this. But, they're not here to do air shows. They're here to teach us and to change us, that there's things about our society that concern them. They're trying to get us over this hurdle. I think we are on the periphery of the space age, and they're afraid of what we're going to take out there. And I don't think they want Star Wars. Star Trek? Yeah. Maybe,
Who doesn't
Star
want
Wars,
Star Trek?
Yeah. Well, Dolly, I have a question for you. Earl, you actually might have, I'm not sure the level of contact you've received, but it has to do with the telepathic communication that happens. To me, because it's so common in most contact stories, that, when people are, whether it's, with any type of contact that they have, there's usually it coincides of any time that they see a being, it's telepathic communication that happens, which means that we as human beings have the ability.
Yes, I agree.
That's the only conclusion I can come to. If you are communicating telepathically, then you have that. And that leads me to my next question, which is, if we have it, is that part of something that we are supposedly being taught to harness in some way in order to be able to utilize? Because, I'm
going to jump in. No, you're born that way. You are born with a pineal gland in your head. It is part of your endocrine system. It is a gland. It can see light and dark. It is neurologically linked up to your brain in a way that it hears you transmitting your thoughts. And it has the ability to transmit thought out.
That might have been an alien.
Yeah,
there was somehow.
I'm like, I am hearing it.
I heard Matt's voice again. Was that telepathic?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell the truth.
We all heard it.
Let's go back.
We all did.
Keep going, Dolly.
Yes, please.
Sorry, Dolly.
It's okay. You're all born telepathic. You know that you're intuitive. You know that you have moments of great insight. You dream things that are going to happen. You know that the ability is there. Every last human being on this planet knows this. But you're not wide open with your pineal gland and you're not using it. And that was a deliberate act by the powers that be on this planet for the last 100 years. You're being bombarded with negativity. You're being poisoned by toxins and pollutants. Fluoride is the worst thing you should put in your mouth. It directly impacts your pineal gland. It calcifies it. So if I was you, I'd stop using fluoride. We are born for this. And this is the message that they want you all to learn. It is a hieroglyphic. There are hieroglyphics that point exactly to the pineal gland. They've tried for centuries to make everybody understand this, but we're dealing with people around us who would beat it out of you and make you ashamed to have it. It is, quote unquote, not a good thing to be psychic. It's you're weird. You're also being bombarded by every kind of too much stimulus coming at you. And it's really hard to focus and center and use your pineal gland. The entire universe uses this ability, all of it. We think in alpha, beta, theta, gamma, and delta waves. ETs think in alpha, beta, gamma, delta, theta. Okay, that's how you communicate. We're transmitting psychically between one another. The reason that you hear them right away is they are very well versed in it. Your mama had to teach you how to walk. She knew how to walk. You were watching her walk. Okay. They can immediately communicate with you for that reason. They're already there. They're very strong psychically, and they can make you hear them. What their problem with us is they can't hear us, and they want us to achieve that, to attain it, to have open contact, open conversations with them. And the governments of this world do not want you to, because then you would know the truth. So it is us. You have the ability. You're born with it. It is an innate talent. You have it.
Well, one of the things I wanted to bring up eventually was tying back to the ancient past is that there's this, of course, this theory in some of the religion, particularly the Indian religion, where this is a cycle we're in, these long 2,000 and some year cycles, and that we're at a similar point where we have this ability technologically, but we're really immature and we could destroy our civilization. And some people say that was like Atlantis, and are we repeating this? And you have to wonder, is that possible? And does that mean the ETs are repeating it? Are they bored with us for saying, hey, you guys, you're about to destroy yourselves again? I mean, it's a curious thing. And there's even some, I think, archaeological proof now that the civilization goes way, way back in time, more than we even imagined, And so you think, okay, there is some proof that we could have had some of these even greater abilities, from what I can tell, building some of the great monuments and the Sphinx and all that. So tying it into that, this whole idea of this being a cycle, are we at sort of at a point in a cycle now that's really critical?
It is critical. There's been life on this planet for 285 billion years. Think about it, billion. We have only this cycle, this iteration that you and I and everybody else knows is roughly right at 12,000 years from the last calamity, the last catastrophe, and that would have been the flood. Okay. Before that, there have been many iterations of humanity on this planet, hundreds and hundreds of them. The scientists here and the archaeologists here don't teach this. It's kept closed knowledge from everybody, and they're starting to come out with it. You're exactly correct, and you're hearing the truth now a little bit, is that there have been 12,000 year cycles, 6,000 year cycles of existence on this planet, and it has nothing to do with the ETs doing to us or we're doing to ourselves. It has to do with our solar system, our galaxy, and the things that go on in the third dimension physically in a solar system. It's volatile, it's very dangerous, and people don't see that because our timeline is so slow. You don't see compacted the things that are coming at you in space and time, over time. And so, the truth is that we're at the end right now of a 12,000 year cycle. And yes, we are technologically advanced now, as every iteration before us was. And we have all done it differently. Each iteration has its good and bad issues, but we all get to that 12,000 year cycle, and then things happen and we start anew. And ET does have something to do with that, in that they've made wholesale rescue of us multiple times, hundreds of times, because what's coming at us is dangerous and it could wipe us out. Right now, our poles are changing. We have an electromagnetic current sheet coming through our solar system, and it is very dangerous. Our magnetosphere is down. It's probably at 40% right now, which means we're taking heavy loads of gamma radiation. It is affecting our DNA and has been for the last 80 years. You can look this up. This is all scientifically correct information. And there are places, and I'll give you a way to access that information. There is no doubt that we are facing some huge changes here. And it is the universe, it is our solar system, it is energy that's around us and impacting us. And there's nothing we can do about that except for what we can do for ourselves. And that is quit being babies and attacking one another, quit threatening one another, quit thinking that I'm going to survive and it's at the expense of you, and work together to help each other to get through this. There have been iterations that have done exactly that, but ours is not doing too good, and AT's kind of flipping out about it. You know, we've made threats to them. I want to bring something up. Snowden absolutely has information that our governments and the governments of the world want him shut up. And one of the things that he said politically, and this is damaging to every political group on this planet, is that humans do not have any scientific cooperation with ETs whatsoever at all. And that's absolutely true. I know this for a fact. They have not been forthcoming to you. And I want to lead into this meeting that's coming up, because disclosure is not going to come from these people, not the truth. They have a narrative, they're running it, and they have reasons. And you won't understand those reasons until you understand why. And why is because we're at the end of a 12,000 year cycle and things are happening and we are expendable to them. So I want you to pay attention to that. That is a message that ET is putting forth. Everybody who's had contact has some part of that message already in their mind, and they're trying to cough it up. And I don't know why I'm the only one saying it, but it's the truth. Okay.
So why don't we, if we want to talk about what's coming up this week, which I did at some point, we may as well do it now. Let's give a little background, because a lot of people aren't going to know what this is. And I did also want to say, since I believe in synchronicity, we planned this show like 2 months ago, and none of this had happened. And the fact that there's a hearing tomorrow, and then also what happened before this. So either any of you, maybe Earl or Preston, let's hear from you. Like, can you give us a backstory of what this hearing is and how it actually started?
Well, it's really interesting.
Oh, Earl.
It's in 1952, on tomorrow's date, that was the date that the White House was actually buzzed by UFOs. And then they came back a week, I think it was a week later. Yeah, it's a week later. So it's an anniversary. I don't know that, I don't know that was intentional. I don't think it probably was, but it sure seems like a synchronicity to me. And I think that there's probably a, bigger hand than ourselves in this stuff. But anyway, but I think, we've got these three guys. The one is a whistleblower, David Grush, I guess is how you pronounce his last name. I've been calling him Grush, but it's Grush, I think. You got David Fravor, who is one of the gentlemen, one of the Top Gun pilots that encountered attack object back in 2004 off of Catalina Island here. And then the third person was Gary. Who was the third person? Do you guys remember? There's three different people that
I'd have to look it up.
But they're all from officialdom. There are Top Gun pilots and people that we trust, and then a DoD whistleblower who is in that had access to some of these special access programs. Of course, there are many of these programs that are waived access to pretty much everybody except for this little core group, of people. They have started with the MJ-12, all that stuff. And by the way, 1947, after Roswell, like directly after the Roswell crash, is when the Air Force was born. It went from the Army Air Corps, and it became two separate entities. And now, of course, Space Force. Yeah. So
it was Ryan Graves.
I think it's been ramping up to this. Will disclosure happen tomorrow? I think we may get a little soft disclosure. I really, as far as I know, from just what my mom told me, she said that they will never, ever, ever tell the public. She said they are afraid of how people are going to react. And I'll tell you the truth. I think that the Pentagon, it's the people to be dealing with the ET phenomenon, because it's all about threat assessment and weaponization. How can we use this, and how can we figure this technology out before China and Russia does, and our other enemies? And this is why it's been shoved under the rug over and over and over again. God forbid we tell the people that we can't protect them from this thing. God forbid that our enemies can figure this technology out before we do. And they're afraid of how, people rioting in the streets, barricading themselves. My mom mentioned the War of the Worlds radio broadcast and people jumping out the windows and stuff. That was the example she gave me in 1963. 1977, again, after we saw Star Wars, for some reason, my mom started breaking her security oaths and started talking again to me. But she said that it's realer than you will ever know, son. She said that Star Wars is not far-fetched. The different beings, the different craft, all of that. She said it is not far-fetched. It is just like that out there. And they will never tell the public, never, ever, ever, because they're afraid of how they'll react. So
I did want to just interject really quickly what we are talking about, because some of the people on our show will not know anything about this. It's there was legislation backed by Chuck Schumer and is a bipartisan measure July 13th, and it aims to force release of UFO records. And then the hearing is actually tomorrow, which, by the way, anyone can listen to on a Zoom link, and I will post it on our show because we have a very broad audience. They're not going to know any of this, some of them. So I just want to interject that so they know that this is a very specific thing that we're talking about.
It's a congressional hearing, and it's being televised too. Or you'll be able to watch it online anyway. There is a link for it.
Yeah.
Well, this is a momentous event for sure.
Yes.
And I totally agree with Earl's mom. They're not going to tell the truth
no,
ever. I really don't trust them. They've had a heinous record from the beginning, and they are still lying. Even the recent congressional hearings where they talked to Ronald Moultrie and what's the other guy's, Daley, they lied throughout that hearing, saying, "Oh, have we ever shot at them?" They both said no. Of course we have. We can prove this. They were asked about Malmstrom, the very famous incident in 1967 in Montana, where UFOs basically.
Like it didn't happen.
Yeah, we don't know Malmstrom. What's that? We have no reporting on this.
Really? They said that they had David Schindley there, like right after Bob Salas. They on the 9th day. And they interviewed both of them, and David said they weren't even taking notes. They didn't film it, nothing.
Yeah,
like
I mean, this is ridiculous. So no, we're never going to get the truth from them. I still think this is momentous. It's movement where we haven't had any for decades within official circles. And I think really the only reason they're doing this is to retain control of the narrative. Because if they don't, they become irrelevant. They become not credible. There's enough evidence now to prove that UFOs are real. But I'm also an optimist. I think disclosure is inevitable. Sooner or later, the truth will come out. And we've got an army of whistleblowers out there. It's not just these three guys. It's hundreds upon hundreds. The truth is going to come out one way or another. But I would point to the Arrow, or the new panel they formed, AARO, the Alden Anomaly Reconnaissance Office or Resolution Office.
Yeah, Resolution.
They have, real quick, 6 goals. The first 3 being basically identifying and analyzing and sort of mapping UFO activity. But the last 3 goals of the Arrow panel definitely caused me to scratch my head, because I think the 4th is basically to mitigate the UFO phenomena. Good luck with that. I don't think you have that we can do that. Mitigate. Yeah. The other is govern. You're not going to be able to govern UFO activity. And the last goal was to obtain their technology. So yeah, I think Earl is right. They're looking at it from a threat perspective. And it's not a threat. It's a threat to them and their power structure. It's good news for all humanity, but certainly not to the secret government or the power elite.
People who want absolute control are the most paranoid people on the planet. There's no doubt about that. Because you have to worry about what everybody else is doing and saying. That is the number one destructive part of being in control. And people will eventually figure it out, but it won't be cut. Our disclosure doesn't come from them. It comes from us, all of us. And when we start speaking the truth comes out. I want to read something to you. This is directly from my contact. Okay. And I was told expressly to bring it up when the chances gave it. And this is from ET themselves. All right. They said, please understand, disclosure from those in authority over humanity will always tactically use plausible deniability. Their agenda supersedes all humanity. Our reality is their construct. It is their power and its weaponization which impugn all explanation to humanity. Therefore, learn all that is learnable. Understand each of us must use our abilities to discern our position in this paradigm. Wisdom is your freedom from their tyranny. We're not going to figure it out from them. We're going to figure it out amongst ourselves. We're capable of doing that. They do not hold authority over us like that. We are not slaves to them. They do not hold the patent on us having to believe and acquiesce to what they say. We're capable of figuring it out ourselves. And that is the point from ET's perspective. Don't sit here and believe everything you say. Hear from other people. When you watch this new thing coming out, please pay attention to exactly everything that comes out of their mouths. In the last one, I did watch that one, and I was shocked when that man sat there and said, whatever that ATIP. He spoke as if they don't know anything. And I know bloody good and well from my experiences here and there that, oh, yes, they do. NASA's not talking because they know exactly what's going on. The governments know exactly what's going on. And they're playing games with you all of you. They're making you think, oh, well, we got this under control. We're going to figure it out. Please think critically through this. I'm begging everybody to use it.
It made me laugh when NASA said, oh, well, we've studied all these sightings, but we need more data. I'm like, pick up a UFO book.
Preston's like, I have a handful. Here, take them. Well, I have a question for you, Preston. So, I didn't get into studying or looking at this until about 2006. And for the first few years, my mind was absolutely blown with learning about how much of this had been, even in public eye, like I think it was a year before Roswell was the Great Battle of LA. You got Rendlesham Forest, Jim Penniston. There's been a lot of people over the decades that have come forward and have said stuff and have, made it known that there are these things that have happened. They themselves had tried to come forward. Stephen Greer, tried to get it from Congress, 2001, again in 2011. It's not for the lack of trying. So the question for me is, why now suddenly? Is it because there's too much info and we're sharing too much info readily available, like with each other, that they're not going to be hold back? They can't hold back the floodgates of information anymore. And so is this why now suddenly governments are okay, media is okay? People, it seems like just in the past year, are suddenly talking about this. And I know that there have been videos and things leaked that have come through, and we have these 3 great witnesses that are now talking to people that were insiders. So that has helped. But usually these things have been stopped ahead of time. And all the way to another question I have later, which is Men in Black, with attempts to trying to shut people up. Why now are the governments okay? It seems like with this information being spread out more, are we being primed? And any kind of way of, is this their attempt at trying to control a narrative around it?
Yeah, I think, well, that's it. Like I mentioned earlier, it's sort of, if they don't, they're going to look like idiots, will become irrelevant. People will no longer listen to them. And they're at that point. And, I can only speculate, but I believe that is the main force behind it. The cover-up is crumbling. It's an open conspiracy. There's no doubt that they know the truth about this. I think they're only doing it for their benefit. And the reasons why I can't say, but I think that they're not doing it because they want to be honest, transparent, and truthful. I think there's something about this that benefits them. So yeah, I think they're trying to control the narrative, put forth the ET threat narrative. There's a lot of buzz about this and the false flag within the UFO community, which I hate to speculate in this field, but you kind of can't help it. But yeah, I don't trust these guys. I'm sorry, I don't. Their record is not only heinous in the UFO field, but across the board in terms of, irradiating soldiers and giving people venereal disease and feeding them hallucinogenics. And just goes on from there. I don't trust these guys. I don't. And I don't know why they're doing it now, other than there's some benefit to them, and it makes them look like, oh, we do have the answers. And then they're like, I don't know, it's this weird push-pull. Oh,
It is, yeah.
No, we don't know anything. I don't know, maybe Earl can speak on that more, but that's kind of how I feel.
Well, I feel like they're kind of, the toothpaste is out of the tube. It was out of the tube in 2017 with Leslie Kean, with a New York Times front page article on the Tic Tac event and the USS Nimitz. And but I think that they are trying to control the narrative. They want it to come out in a way that benefits them, to where it doesn't make them this archaic thing that we no longer need. Fear is a good motivator for getting your way out there. And technically we pay our military to be paranoid for us. So they're doing their job. They're not doing something they're not supposed to do, except for, hiding this for at least 70 to 90 years now, we're hearing. I think one of the big interesting things about tomorrow's UFO congressional hearings are that David Grush, the gist of his whole coming forward is that he's saying that we have crash materials and even intact craft and bodies, and that it's been farmed to the aerospace, the military-industrial complex. That's why FOIA requests don't work on that stuff. Trying to get a FOIA request on my mom's background, you can't do it. Who worked privately, for independent aerospace company. And so I think that right now, what Chuck Schumer is trying to do is he's trying to get all these companies to pony up what they have, give it to Congress, and then it goes. But then, are they going to give that to us? I don't think so. It may get hidden even deeper than it is now.
They said in the last one, it's a deeply military thing, and they're going to keep it to themselves. That we will not be told anything. That it's okay, we're checking it out, but you don't worry about it. That was the theme of the last meeting, and we're going to hear more this time.
Well, even Grush in his testimony, where everybody's talking in interviews, is he always has to stop his conversation at some point because it is completely classified information, so he'll give you enough to tell you what, to let us know that this is a very real thing that is happening. But then as far as details go, that it's all classified. So he has to kind of stop the conversation at a certain point. So I'm curious how far the hearing is going to go.
I think it's fascinating synchronistically. It's all happening during the time that AI is becoming forefront. And we're all wondering how that's going to, because, here we're in LA and we know about the strike, but it's all happening kind of like simultaneous in terms of the collective energy coming out. And to me, that's just not a coincidence, and I agree, with Preston, based on the fact that I read that this particular legislation is sort of like imitating what they did with the files for the assassination of Kennedy, and we all know that didn't really solve anything. So that we can't even come out and talk about that yet at the government. So how could you possibly trust our government
as transparent
on UFOs? List. That's even more out there, right?
Correct. Absolutely. We have to critically think. Your dad is reading Symmetry, and I want you to ask your father after he's done what it is that I said is coming. It is specific, and it answers all your questions. It is in the book. I don't like to talk about it openly in forums like this because it is dire, and I want people to be set up to understand what's going on first, to be able to mentally see it before they totally understand what dire really is. It is momentously large. I want you to consider that the governments of this planet have been building underground facilities for the last 50 years. They have technology from back engineered. Absolutely, there is an alt government running the show. They have seed depositories. They have acted as if we are heading for the worst calamity there is, and they're going to survive. Kamala has openly stated that we need to resolve the population problem, that we'll have more air to breathe if there are less people here. That's a clue, a big veiled clue. I want you all to think about who is in control, how many there are, and who can fit in those underground facilities and utilize those places. Things are happening above and beyond anything you see in the government. As far as I'm concerned, it's all smoke and mirrors. It's a play before you to misdirect you from the absolute truth. The truth is being spoken. There are places you can go seek the truth, but you have to be willing to want to know. And that's the biggest thing in this, is that each one of us has a right to not die stupid. Each one of us has a right to control ourselves and how we're going to react to all of this. Each one of us has to decide whether we really want to know or we're going to live until something happens. A lot of people are already thinking these things. It is the absolute truth of it. It is spoken openly amongst the people on the planet. And cohesively thinking, if y'all sit down and get together in a big forum, and I mean a big one, every researcher across the planet, every person who's seen a UFO, every person that's had contact, and just open the mic and say, let's talk about what's going on, and then work it out so that it's in a way where you have to ask to get on, not override one another, and you start speaking the truth to one another, things are going to happen. Worldwide waking up will happen at the same time. It's too hard to be in a bubble and not see everything going on around you. It really is. And we are in a bubble here. Everybody's in a bubble everywhere. We're only hearing what they want us to hear. You know that the media is under control now. You know that corporations are under control now, or helping to control. It's a serious situation, and it has nothing to do with doing the right thing for us. That's the narrative. And they're going to give you a reason not to hate them, but to hate something else. And they're going to use ET. Because the number one reason, and I'm going to tell you flat out, they're not here right now. They physically bugged out about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. They cannot be here. Our magnetosphere is down. We have electromagnetic radiation on this planet. Our field lines are all jumbled up and they can't fly them. It's too dangerous. All the crashes that they've had is because of that, getting worse and worse and worse over the last 80 years. And our governments know it, and the timing is perfect for them. They're not here to stop them. That's what they believe. That's what their paranoia teaches them. And they're going to do some real serious things to us, all worldwide. And I want you to hear the truth.
Earl, Preston, what do you think about some of those thoughts? Particularly, I'd be interested to hear, have you heard from people that have seen other UFOs? Do you agree that they've withdrawn from your particular evidence and research?
I'm open-minded to what you're saying, Dolly, but I don't really see the evidence for that personally. I see people still seeing craft,
they're seeing back engineered flying. They're seeing back engineered everything.
Well, we're seeing portals opening up and stuff coming through still, you know. So I don't know. I mean, I know that there's a lot of different ideas out there, that some of them are scary and alarmist, and other people, it's the opposite. You hear that, you know, this is gonna, the age Aquarius is gonna start now, you know. I have to remain absolutely open to whatever it's gonna be. I don't know, honestly. I feel like I'm certainly connected. I talk with everybody. I have people in the D that I speak with, and I have people that are certainly not, you know, that are the opposite. I have people that think that this is all the evil cabal that's doing this. Some of them think that it's the people I vote for, and other people think that it's the, you know, the people that they vote for. You know, and I don't know. It's very easy for us to decline into political stuff or into infighting in ufology. Now I know that, you know, 2012 was going to be the end of the world, according to the Mayan calendar.
That's sad to me. I know.
And I know the Jehovah's Witnesses had to stop predicting the end of the world some years back because they kept coming up with egg on their faces and couldn't get, you know, people to join their religion. So I'm not going to any, you know, now I'm hearing the 2017 thing, and they're saying that alien that was interviewed that, you know, kind of looked like a marionette was actually a real thing. And that, you know, and I've got a lot of people that are freaking out, you know, that are very alarmist right now. And
You're a
then I've
very
got people that
intelligent
are
human
the
being.
other side.
Would you
So
be open? You're very intelligent. Would you be open to examining truth, scientific proof?
that's sure. That's what
All right. Well, I'm going to start handing it to you. All right. Because
Mhm.
there is the reason you're from this perspective is that you don't know, you don't have any clue
Mhm.
what I'm really saying.
Well, I
you have
know.
no
I think I do
foundation.
have a clue. I mean, I'm in
Well,
touch with.
all right.
I believe that there are ETs that are living here among us now. I mean, I don't think they've all gone home. I mean, I'm not. I mean, I think I might have spoken with one of them a couple days ago. So I mean, no, they have not all left
Well,
Earth.
I'll
I
give you a
don't believe
small
it.
window into what you're seeing as portals. We have
Mm,
7D holography now. The military
mm.
started using it a long time ago. They can make you see whales swimming in the air. In
Oh, I
in
know.
a gymnasium, they can make you see them diving into the wood and splashing around. The Chinese and the Japanese have kiosks outside that make you
Mhm.
think that there are things coming out at you, and they're as real and 3D looking to you as they are, but it's 7D technology. There's a lot of that in use right now. There is a lot going on, and you have to ask yourself how much of what you understand is fact and how much of it is presented untruths to make you follow the narrative.
Mm.
And that is happening. And when I say it's back engineered, you bet every TR3B that you see, they're the triangular craft, are ours, period.
Mm.
End of
Yeah, there's
sentence.
no doubt that some of this stuff flying around for years ago,
Is
I was
ours,
told
sure.
that very early on in my research that good 20-30% of what people are seeing is reverse engineered craft.
Mhm.
And Dolly's statements, I think I personally do take them very seriously. Dolly's story is the most extensive case of contact I've ever had the privilege to investigate. And she does have supporting witnesses. She has photographic evidence. I've seen the UFOs myself. She's got medical evidence. So I do take her statements very seriously. But, looking at the reports that are coming in, I saw a huge spike in 2020, doubled. According to MUFON and NUFORC, the number of people seeing UFOs went way, way up. And then it dropped. And I'm not getting current reports, a lot of direct contact. I got a few scattered ones. There's one guy in England who said flat out that he had an encounter with an AI gray. And Dolly has said, yeah, that some of them
That is
are still
possible.
around.
Yeah. They will
So-
fly drone in here. It's if they crash and burn, it's nothing to them. But you won't see a living extraterrestrial here at all. They can't handle it. And
Michael
we're
had
handling
a question. He was wondering if they could project rather than be here physically. So can they be here and not be here at the same time? Just noticed on the
they're that
chat.
special. They have that much of an ability. They can remote view you, and their remote viewing is so powerful. They come in as an orb. You think you're seeing an orb, you're actually seeing their consciousness in front of you, and they do interact with us that way. They can watch you that way.
There's
Absolutely.
also Jeremy Perkins has joined in. He said that he's had tons of contact with craft with psychic interaction. And, one of the things I was going to bring up, and I know you've talked about this, is that the paranormal psychic world and UFO, they really are merging a lot more naturally. And I thought that must be part of the evolution of it all. and so that, as Dolly is correct in saying that I've always thought we all have these psychic abilities, and for whatever reason, we haven't developed them. Some reason is because it can make people go crazy. I mean, it's not necessarily a nice thing if you suddenly are psychic and you can suddenly see or hear things you normally don't. But anyway, sort of that they're sort of coming together more, and it seems to me, and again, a point made that Michael's making, that if they're more advanced than we are, they can find a way to come through. That would be helpful for us, since there are many people that seem to want to be interacting with extraterrestrials in a very positive way and get the truth from them.
Yeah, I am grounded here. I cannot leave here now because they are gone. I have no craft to fly out on. I decided to do that on purpose because y'all need to know the truth, period. And so I'm here with you all. I am human. I am hybrid human, though. I have some gray and some tall white lineage, a little bit more closer than you all would. You all, everybody on this planet is related to them, by the way, absolutely related to them. We have to understand that because we've been treated the way we have on this planet and suffered so much and don't understand so much, our educational levels are weak at best and don't have the foundation for assimilating all this knowledge all at one time. And we're getting close. The clock is ticking because things are happening around us. And basically, if you can get a mindset to make communication with them, learn to meditate, learn to open yourself up, clean up your body of fluoride, because that's messing you up, trust me, and make contact with them, you will. They can contact you psychically. I'm still in contact with my people. And it is not hard to do. It's very easy to do. We all don't have parents who had this ability teaching us here. We're sort of floundering in a sea of but we can, if we knuckle down and work at it, we can achieve it on our own. We can. I've seen it happen. And it's
what
just
are the three? There's a trifecta of messages that people are left with, experiencers.
Okay.
I'm an experiencer myself. I've probably spoken with a good 500 of them. Every single experiencer case that comes into California or this area, I see first, and I give them to somebody in the experiencer resource team. We're a compassionate group. We are open-minded. We understand this is a real thing. And I see three things that people are left with over and over and over again. Number one, war is evil. Nuclear war is just anathema and will destroy you. And you need to learn to live like brothers or you'll die like thieves. Number two, stop treating your world like it's replaceable, like it's a trash can, like it's your personal depository of garbage. And Mars is not to colonize so much as to learn from. Number three, elevate yourselves, raise your vibration, better yourselves.
Right.
Those are all three really positive messages. It doesn't like something evil to me. It doesn't, and that's what I find from case to case. But as far as details, even where they come from. Now, I have people that will tell you they're coming from Zeta Reticuli, and they will swear to you. And I have people that believe they're coming from the next dimension over. In fact, I tend to lean towards the interdimensional hypothesis myself. Gets rid of things like, Fermi's paradox and elsewhat, although, I don't worry too much about Fermi, to tell you the truth. But I think that there's a manifold of things that are going on with this phenomenon. I don't think that it's just one thing. If you're familiar with Jacques Vallée's Magonia book, you see like the little ET that's got little hand puppets, it's a fairy and some other hand puppet. And then, but if you get the hardcover version, you see that even the ET is a hand puppet. There's a hand that's in the ET that we can't even see who it belongs to. And that's the way that I see this phenomena. I don't even know that this is actually ET, to tell you the truth. It sure seems like it. My mom sure seemed to think it was. But I don't know. It may be coming from the next dimension over. It may be, miming what an ET looks like. It might even be us from the future. It might be us from the past. I can't make my mind up. I'm not supposed to. All right. For you, that's okay for people to make their minds up about stuff. But for myself, I would be doing a disservice to everybody. I wouldn't be doing my job as a MUFON field investigator and as a ERT member if I had just one single idea with a date or whatever. And that was what I was going by. Dogma is kind of the end of all creative thought. It stops you and you're stuck in there, and I can't afford to do that. So I absolutely, I respect everything that you're talking about, and it absolutely could be like that. Sure seems like it sometimes,
Well, I agree with you, Earl.
But this is where I stand. I actually hold a different position on this than you do, which is good. We have to keep an open mind here. We have to, for me, it seems like there's a whole spectrum here, and I have to be open-minded to it. It may be this horrible negative thing that's going to destroy us. I mean, maybe the military is right. I don't think so, but I mean, I have to be completely open.
That's a good thing, actually. I respect what you're saying, and I have a reason for that. One of the things that I was briefed on before I opened my mouth here is that I had to respect everybody's opinion and perspective of where they're at. And there's one simple reason why. It's very easy to understand. And it's basically you and everybody else, me included, Preston, all of us here, are individuals with absolute autonomy of who we are, why we are, and what we're about to do. And we make those choices for ourselves. That is our right as consciousness. That's a gift to us from everything. And we come here to learn, literally learn. And raising your vibration is all about that, attaining wisdom. And as we speak to one another, open voices are important. And different perspective is important because not everybody's on the same page at the same time. But to hear the truth from everybody who's got something to say about it is important. It's called consensus. And somehow we get through that with consensus. That's exactly how ET operates. And so don't think that I have anything but absolute totally respect for what you do. I do, absolutely.
I love what you just said, Earl, and I wanted to say that you start getting into the realm of, which is where I come from in my background, consciousness, and having been sort of schooled in Buddhism and what is real and what isn't real and how everything is a dream, but particularly influenced by Jane Roberts' book, The Nature of Personal Reality, which tests, it's got some incredible things in it where basically you know where you're coming from is coming through your lens of reality. When you really shift it, you see things that were always there. And I remember trying the exercise and it actually worked. I mean, it was something kind of simple, but it was incredibly specific, the result. And I said, oh, I get it now. I did it with something that wasn't like very loaded. And so then you're entering that realm. And that to me is a very real realm. And that's where I get kind of clouded by, what is this? Even with spirits and ghosts, is this a ghost? Is this another universe? Is this the past? I just want to be open. I don't want to make a decision yet, because to me, at least in the paranormal, I haven't seen the proof. But I've seen all kinds of possibilities, which I think is pretty exciting, actually. So,
well, it's also
Ray Hernandez, really smart and interesting guy. He has a book called Beyond UFOs. It's about this thick. And the sequels come out, and it's maybe thicker than that. But he believes that the UFO phenomena and all of that there are all different modalities of contact. He sees it as a wheel. There's a hub, and then there's all the spokes and UFOs and psychic phenomena and ghosts and NDEs and elsewhat. That each one is a spoke, and that it all. And I have a lot of respect for Renario. I really, really like him. The astronaut Edgar Mitchell he gave his free group to, it was called the free group. It's kind of like what the ERT does, the early groups that spoke, interviewed, and had compassion for experiencers. But anyway, that's the way that Renario sees it. And I think that this is light is just one part of the spectrum. It's the visual end, but I think that perhaps this phenomena is the same. Betty Andreasen, interesting case. I know, Preston, you may have known her, but her ETs would appear to her. They would quote scripture to her because that's what made her comfortable. They knew the Bible backwards and forwards, and it was an amazing case. I had one case where the gentleman was being visited, and he said he was of Middle Eastern origin, and he told me, well, Earl, the Greys know the Quran. They know that they'll tell me the Quran, and so I think that this phenomenon I'm not gonna put my finger on it and say it's this.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
I will
it's
say it's a lot of things.
almost like the duality of man in and of itself. The different realms in which we also exist. Like for example, if you have a dream, it's very nonlinear, it's non-local. Everything is extremely ethereal, and even in just trying to tell somebody what that dream is, you're solidifying it into this existence here, which changes it on a level. And I think in a different dimension or a different ethereal place where something else exists, whatever that is, and trying to nail it down into our material world kind of would change it. And so it's never going to be one or the other. It may be something that just in and of itself exists within both.
But I will say I have great respect for everybody here. I mean, we can agree on stuff. We're going to find stuff absolutely that we agree 100% on,
Oh, yeah.
But
I came into this field as a complete skeptic. So when I found out it was real, I realized that, beliefs are fragile. And what is indestructible is firsthand knowledge. And so that's what I've been trying to work towards. I'm trying to figure out what this is. And I know that there are a lot of theories to explain UFOs. And all kinds of stuff gets put under the UFO umbrella that perhaps doesn't belong there. I'm certain there are interdimensional beings. But I find it absolutely inescapable, the idea of extraterrestrials. And I think the extraterrestrial theory by far explains the totality of the evidence. And let's face it, if the accounts from whistleblowers are true, that we have craft and bodies, well, pretty much all bets are off. Some of this is extraterrestrial. There's no doubt in my mind, having talked to so many experiencers, that this is absolutely happening. Not all of it, perhaps. And I'm not sure the interdimensional theory is super useful because everything in this universe is interdimensional.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's all outer space. I mean, what's the difference? It's all outer space,
No, I respect that theory. The second one, Jacques Vallée, John Keel, Jerome Clark put it forth first.
Yeah.
Perhaps this is masquerading. I don't think so.
I don't know. I honestly, I can't tell you dogmatically anything except my own experience and what, a
near-death experience is a near-death experience. I hate to put this all under and say it's one thing that is controlling our belief system. That's a very anthropocentric theory. I think there are interdimensional creatures. There are, if you look at society, every society on our planet throughout history has a gamut of supernatural creatures, all kinds. And I think probably those are absolutely valid. I am not going to say they're all an intelligence that's putting on different masks, because there's no good reason, I think, to say that. I think the universe
probably a bunch of
vast.
things. I don't think it's one thing. I mean, it's like if we find out that it's all nothing but astronauts from other planets, in some ways I'll be disappointed, because I think it's much bigger than that.
I agree.
But is it like ghosts? Hell no, it's not ghosts. It's material. I can tell you that. I experienced it myself. I felt them touching me and moving me around, and there's nothing I could do about it because I was rendered quadriplegic while they were busy, But
there's a lot of resistance to the ET theory, and I don't fully understand it.
Well, I'm not resistant to the ET theory, but I think that it's more than that. I mean, it's interdimensionals or ETs too. It's extraterrestrial. It's not from this planet.
Knowledge, the base of knowledge scientific is empirical. And if you are knowledgeable and based in the sciences and you understand physics, quantum physics, mathematics, all of it, all of the sciences, light, all of it, especially mathematics, you will start to see how things are connected and conjoined together. Not everybody has those abilities. In other words, not everybody is educated completely in all of those systems. It's been denied here. It is very hard then, therefore, to have a theory in your mind or an understanding of what you think or how you feel about it and weigh it against actual facts. And it would be more productive for everybody, and this is my opinion, if we all started to say, write down the 10 questions that bother you the most, the things you want to know, and then do everything in your power, mentally, spiritually, all of it, to answer those questions. Once you do that, you open a door to understanding. And this is an exercise that I hope that people start to employ, because it's really great to talk about it, but without knowledge, you have no basis to call it that's what it is. And this is an important element of discussions, especially panel discussions, because everybody knows what they know, but there is no absolute empirical data on it. And we can't reach that without us doing it ourselves, understanding it ourselves. Then when you come together, you can say, well, I know this for a fact, and give your evidence. And if it's written into the scientific record, we have a scientific record here. It is empirical data that they absolutely know the truth to, and yet nobody knows how to get into it. And I wish they did. That should be one of the things that everybody looks up. So it's good to talk about it, though, because this is what excites us to learn about it. This is what it moves us toward understanding it. It's very, very, very important. And that's how we wake up.
I love the idea of the questions, because questions, I think, really open doors and they lead you to places you don't know you're going. And I want to sort of throw in another bone based on, again, my background. Rudolf Steiner, in one of his books, who was an incredible clairvoyant, and he started Waldorf, and he saw the problems with the soil and could see it in the 1900s, what was happening. And so he had these sort of magical remedies that actually work on the farms, and so the biodynamic farms. So anyway, he said that he thought there would become an occult science, that there would be a time that we would also incorporate, and again, we're talking about using these. I really think we have not realized fully our capacities as clairvoyants and clairaudience. I mean, if you look what Casey could even do, and he's not even necessarily the top of it. I haven't met too many people that could do what Casey could do, and they call themselves clairvoyant. Not putting them down. I'm just saying there's a lot more you can do that we haven't developed. So I believe in empirical science personally, but I also think, I wonder if we need to be open-minded to other forms, like other cultures are, to other ways of sort of proving things, and maybe they'll complement each other somehow. I don't know, but having gone to both schools, since I studied science and I wanted to be a marine biologist, and then I got into the psychic stuff, and I feel like there's a path with both of them, that we can't discount these other ways that people know things that can't yet be proven empirically and may never be empirical. So anyway, I'd like to hear what people think about that.
You're absolutely right. And it's a very valid point. That's why PT says, wake up, use your abilities, because you can download from the universal mind. All the information that is knowable is already out there. There's nothing that's not unknowable. And you can be taught that way. You can absolutely be taught that way from psychic.
Akashic record.
That's what I was just about to say. Is there, Dolly, you might actually have more information on that. Is there an Akashic record that we can tap into, that's an ability that we have that just isn't, again, practiced or harnessed?
Every single person who is alive, you're a sentient conscious being, you can tap the Akashic record. It requires you to develop some ability. Preston can absolutely talk about this one, because he out-of-bodies very, very easily, very well. On this planet, he's the first person that I've ever met who can do it as well as I can, and I'm pretty good. He has been there. He knows the Akashic Library. He knows how to access it. And he tells about it much better than I do.
I love to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Synopsis there, Preston.
The gateway tapes, was it remote viewing? What are we talking here?
Astral projection, which is a natural human talent. We all do it every night. And a lot of what we remember as dreams, flying dreams and very vivid places of dreams of going places, are absolutely out-of-body experiences. I learned how to do it from Robert Monroe's book many years ago after my mom died.
So that's gateway, okay.
Monroe Institute,
Yeah. I never went to the whole gateway thing. I just buckled down and meditated my butt off and learned how to do it and got progressively better. And of course, my MO was sort of reading all these books about other people, and we're like, well, if they did it, why can't I? And I certainly read about the astral, or the Akashic Library, Akashic Plane. And so that became right to the top of my bucket list because I wanted to do it. If they can do it, anyone can. And yeah, there is absolutely a place you can go. And I had some really cool experiences there where I learned about my own past lives. But it's my understanding that all our life events are recorded there. And anyone can do it. It's just a matter of focusing on it, meditating, and really intending to do it. And I think what you're saying is absolutely awesome, because just think if people had this ability, and then when we're exploring archaeological sites, we can bring, psychics and stuff to find out what happened there. Or in legal situations in court, we don't know if people are lying or not. We're relying on technology that doesn't actually work. When we do have the telepathic ability to link up to each other. If we were all telepathic, it would be a completely different world. Corruption would fall by the wayside. Greed, all of this, we would recognize that we are all one.
You
So I
can't
think it's an
lie if
important
everybody's
point.
telepathic.
Yeah.
Lies
Yeah.
become,
Well, according to the work
Yeah.
of Matthias de Stefano, someone who can vividly remember all of their past lives, he said that, a lot of the ancient structures that are around, that we have no idea how these things came about or how people moved, these amazing, huge megalithic blocks of stone, and why we would build such things anyway. And he said, during that time, we were ourselves the technology, and we only built these things in and of that they aided us in the fact that we were the greatest technology. And so that's what their use was, and that's as far as I remember him going into it. But he says our powers of what we have are greater than we know or even utilize today, which does
That's
coincide
exactly
with what Dolly
DBTs
says.
are
Yeah.
trying to say. Yeah, because we do have the ability not only to heal each other, physically levitate, mediumship, astral projection, clairvoyance, precognition, telekinesis. All of this has been proven in laboratory setting. Levitation has, telekinesis has, telepathy has, in a laboratory scientific setting. We are so much more powerful than we realize, the things we can do.
I think
Remote
that some of
viewing
it,
is
some of the
something.
yogis have been like, they don't emphasize that because at the time, and I think it's true, we're not quite ready to have those powers, all of us, because I can see immediately like the Jerry Springer show of psychic abilities. I mean, I don't know. That's just popped in my head. But I feel like if a frog can grow its leg back, I think nature shows us what nature can do. We're part of nature, which I think why we ought to honor and see and learn from nature is they can do some incredible things. And I think we're animals, and why wouldn't we have these abilities too, whatever they are?
Everything in the universe is pretty symmetrical, and every planet that holds life is pretty much the same. Very, very little variance from each other. And our own bodies are a template of what exists everywhere. There is no silicon person. We're all carbon. We're all intelligent. We all have 5 legs and 4 body parts, legs and arms. We have fingers. We have feet. We eat. We breathe. We sleep. We can hear. We can taste. We have children. These are all symmetry. That's why the book is called that, amongst all living beings in the universe. And yeah, your planet is a home that was, you were stationed here to learn from. And one of them is absolutely true. Nature does heal us. Everything we need to heal ourselves is here. And it's part of the machine, so to speak, of life. It is a 3rd dimensional, hard space, gravity heavy, that affords us the ability to have experience and then employ that experience and become wise and move up. That's what ascension, or elevating your vibration. Your vibration, by the way, this is a peeve with ET. You think your brain is wired from your consciousness at the moment of conception. Your consciousness is already hardwiring the frequency at which you think and who it is, because it's the frequency of your consciousness. It's like a thumbprint. Every single consciousness in the universe has its own frequency. It's very hard to explain this, but it's so specific Okay, and on the grander, the macro universe scale, you're you, and this is how ET hears you and knows who you are. We would know this about each other if we were here. Elevating our frequency does not exist. That's misinformation. I wish everybody would stop thinking this way. What elevates you is the wisdom that you employ and you understand in developing your abilities. When you do that, you are elevating yourself up out of where you were and becoming where you should be. Evolution here is very specific, and ET's been waiting for us to do it. We need to realize that about ourselves. That's why we don't harm the planet. That's why we don't pollute our bodies, because we can't use our innate abilities if we're all polluted. We can't understand if we can't hear the truth. These are very basic necessities in life, and that's a big deal.
By their fruits ye shall know them. And
Yes.
I think about that a lot. And
Yes.
you know, I feel like the raising your vibration, you can't be a selfish, hateful, self-centered person. That's kind of the way that I see that when your compassion is elevated, when your empathy is kicked up, that you don't live in a selfish way, that you live in a way where you don't live off of the misfortune of others, and raise yourself up by standing up on, pushing somebody else down. I think it's a lot of little things like that. I think that it's not trying to be better. It's just that, the closer that you get to God or the one or, higher power, whatever you want to call it, the universe, when you see that we're all connected, that all points in the universe are the same point, it's how ESP works. Apparently that's how faster than light travel works, according to Ben Rich and Flocky. But I think that is a part of elevating yourself. And also I've been working on remote viewing with a friend of mine in New Mexico, and I get some pretty good hits and he gets some very good hits. He knew exactly what record album was sitting on my couch, and he could not
Wow.
see into my room.
That is good.
Paul McCartney album, and it was it was Tug of War by Paul McCartney, and there it was. He's saying, I see, like, is it one of the Beatles? And it's like, oh my gosh. And then I saw his, he lives in this property where he has a Navajo hogan, like a dwelling that's just off of his property. And he has like a little creek that runs alongside and a fence. And I've never seen, I didn't open up Google Earth and look, but somehow or another, I told him exactly what the property was that he was on. I mean, now the next time, 2 days later, we did the same thing, and I was just completely off.
You don't know when you're on or you're off. I'll give you a tool you can use for this, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Russell Targ, who's still alive.
Oh, I love
He's
Russell.
Well, he
He
developed
just friended me on
Awesome.
LinkedIn anyway.
Wow.
He developed a program. It's called ESP Trainer. And it is 3 different parts. It starts you on the low end, and it has a medium and a high ability, and it gauges you and teaches you to know when you're on and when you're off. And it's like riding a bike, you have to balance and all that. Well, this teaches you how to balance when you're on and when you're off and when you're going to be right. And it's on an app. It's it's Android, iPhones, and all PCs. You go to the Play Store or the Google Play Store or
The App Store,
Apple,
I'm guessing.
and it's on there. You look up ESP Trainer and you load it up on whatever you've got and start playing with it, and it will help you a lot.
I'll check that
Great.
out. Another way to do it, and this was a friend of mine that actually does remote viewing for the FBI, and she's done it for other people, but said their morals weren't very good. But it's a very interesting person that I'm not at liberty to talk too much about. But there's a thing that you can do. It's simple. Anybody can do it when you're on the road. It's highway telepathy. Everybody, especially here in Los Angeles, Preston, you don't have to worry about it so much. But you guys in Venice can utilize this. When you're in traffic or somebody's running up too close to your bumper or somebody's too slow in front of you, too fast, and whatever, will usually start cursing and, using the half of a peace sign at them, you can figure that one out, right? We have our way of reacting to stuff. And instead of doing that, what this friend of mine told me, and she's a serious person, she teaches this stuff at the FBI headquarters. I can't say it in the Carolinas. What's Quantico?
Oh, well, Quantico, yes.
All right, and I know she teaches it there. But anyway, what was told is that you just have to make sure that you're not angry at that person. You have to ground center, pray, whatever it is that you do to get into that good space. Okay. I usually do a combination of both, ground center and pray. And then once calm down, you just send out the thought. Just, could you please move over to the slow lane or the fast lane? Or could you please get off my bumper? Please. And do it, kindly. Make sure that you're not yelling at them in your head, because they'll pick that up and it'll make them want to do the opposite, such as the human nature. But I've been doing this. I've been trying to get my wife to and she does it. She's trying it. And she says that it does work. Although sometimes she likes to do the half the peace sign thing.
Well, there's some satisfaction sometimes.
Right? Yeah.
But there's ways, I think, to elevate, and to raise your vibration. And meditation is a beautiful way to do that.
Yeah. Turn the volume. Russell Targ teaches this, and this is the way I was taught by ET. It's not the vibration, it's the volume. Okay. Here's a way to visualize this. You've got a radio, and it's got two bands, AM and FM. And on that band are different frequencies, and you're tuning in to those frequencies. Well, you got another dial. For you to hear that frequency, you have to turn up the volume. And with psychic ability, it's the same way. I want to hear you, but you have to turn your volume up for me to perceive it if I'm not that good. And when you're learning to be psychic with other people, it's don't raise your vibration, turn the volume of your ability up. In other words, see it and feel it and hear it in your own mind. I'm loud enough for you to hear me. You just have to say that, and boop, it goes up, because your consciousness obeys what your physical mind obeys what your consciousness is telling you. Okay, intention is everything. So you're turning the volume up to that particular person.
Well, I think that more and more people are realizing the link of telepathy, and honestly, it probably is a little bit of the byproduct of the social media. Because haven't you had the experience lately? I've had this experience. I've literally been thinking something, and immediately my feed reflects my thoughts, not something I've put in there that they could figure out. That's different. And I said, "Oh, that's really fun." This is something I'm noticing. It's gotten easier.
Well, it is you in a bypass sort of way. We have, if you must know, every single satellite is a neural net in the sky above us. And they have AI computers, quantum computers that are linked up to it and operating already. And they have been for several years. You just don't know about it. Your telephone, 4G, 5G, 6G, all the way up to 12G, is them tuning in to everything that goes on around you. You're now circled by technology that can read your thoughts. This is back engineered from ET, because the AI don't have that ability naturally. They had to be implanted with it, and they have used it. So now you've got this AI computer who can freely hear everything you think and show you it's hearing you.
Yeah, I don't totally agree with that. I think there's that, but this is what I'm talking about, something extremely, for me, it was really specific to something recently with a neighbor. And so it was something very small and unimportant, but I know, I know that they can read by my behavior and also by, things that you put in a long time ago. I understand that, but I think there's something different as well. I do think there's this level of accessibility, since I've been studying the effects on me for decades, that suddenly is easier. And I don't think it's because, honestly, I've become more evolved personally. I mean, that's just my personal experience, because sometimes you'll have breakthroughs when I notice there's something a little bit more open if people are, meditating or sitting there, doing mantras or whatever you do to get connected to the higher source. And that's just my own personal experiences the last maybe 6 months.
Go back and listen to everything that Elon Musk has said in the last year, and he has openly admitted that they are psychic now. and that they have the ability to hear you and communicate with you psychically.
Well, since we're on the subject, Dolly, I have a question for you about what do you think of channeling mediumship of people like Esther Hicks or Paul Anka that channel, these different, whether it's entities, but source, to be able to send messages back and forth?
Okay, I know it's real because I can hear my main contact is Talata, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he hears me all the time and I hear him. And he will openly speak to me out of nowhere. If something's going on and he has something to say to me, he'll say it, okay? I'm not one of those people that just sit in a room and let him talk through me. It's not my thing, but I could let him if I wanted to, okay? So I give the benefit of the doubt. And basically what you do in a case like that is it's up to you to discern if this person is valid or not. That's the thing. There are valid people who can, like you could use the word channel. I don't like to call it channeling. I'm just in open contact and I hear him. I hear two other entities as well. And I've never had an instance where they wanted to communicate directly through me. They would never have asked me that. That's not the relationship I have with them. Mm-hmm. But they could if I wanted them to. Like, come on and let's have a talk. But I'm not being taken over by them at all. I just hear them and I'm repeating it to others. So
interesting. All right, I have a really fun question for Preston. And it's with your vast amount of research and experience that you've had over the decades, have there been any commonalities with a lot of anything cryptid going, through the years, whether it be Bigfoot, ghosts, a lot of the paranormal, even, like the I forget the name of them, but the creatures that are in the Appalachian Mountains, all the things that people see, and then tying that also to contact as well. It all does sometimes get jumbled up into the same kind of ball of wax, but are there any through lines through any of those that have surprised you where you're like, oh, and does that also relate back to the perceptive lens of which we see things?
Okay, that is huge.
It's a loaded question, I know.
That's not going to be easy to answer. I kept away from Bigfoot for a while because I thought it might be real. And then, of course, I got my first Bigfoot case and had to research Bigfoot. I started investigating ghosts right away because so many contactees were talking about this. And it became immediately apparent to me that all of these things are interconnected in some way. One commonality that really did surprise me in terms of cryptids, and specifically Bigfoot, was telepathy. Because the first guy I interviewed who had a Bigfoot encounter had it following a UFO landing in his backyard. It was the next night. So this is your sort of Bigfoot UFO case. And there are a good number of them. And he said that he was in telepathic contact with the Bigfoot. And I started researching Bigfoot cases and interviewing people, and a lot of them described that. I thought, wow, that is crazy. I did not expect that. And having researched cases where UFO phenomena and Bigfoot intersect perfectly, and there's a lot of them. There's a good 100 cases in the literature that I could point to. Certainly, it's rare in terms of the huge number of Bigfoot cases and UFO cases. Most people who see a UFO are not going to see Bigfoot, and vice versa. But yeah, sometimes they intersect perfectly. For the longest time, I'm thinking, well, it's Bigfoot in ET. Is this a manifestation of it? Now, my latest theory, and this is why I liked what you said, Earl, you don't lock yourself into any one theory. Because the second you do, something's going to come along and knock you over right in your butt. My latest theory, and this sounds so crazy when I think of it, is that Bigfoot is a UFO contactee and is intelligent. And that's ETs are contacting Bigfoot in much the same way they're contacting people.
Maybe they're coming here for him and not us. Screw those guys. Who's that hairy guy over there?
Exactly. There's so many cases of that. And yeah,
you open portals, stuff comes through. That's what I think. Skinwalker Ranch. If you've read the book, the Utah UFO Display, which is fantastic, wonderful book. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we've known that weird stuff was happening over there in the basin there forever and ever. But I think that that there's some places that are natural thin, it's where there's a thinness between worlds, maybe, like the wardrobe to Narnia kind of thing, and maybe there's some, I kind of feel like that's the case there. And you open up a portal, stuff comes through, cryptids, it's
Yeah, a lot of contactees have been telling me they're seeing shadow people.
Yeah.
And then I'm interviewing a lady who's like, well, I had a poltergeist outbreak following my contact. And it occurred to me like, okay, I think contactees are themselves the portal. They're reaching a new level of awareness. And aware of shadow people and mediumship and poltergeist activity. The bioelectric field we know gets affected by contactees because they're blowing out light bulbs and making radios fuzz up.
Oh yeah.
And this sort of
Irina Scott, I'm sorry, I'll shut up in a second. She and her sister had a contact, missing time and stuff back in the 1960s. And when she got home, she walked into her bathroom and the electric toothbrush flew across the room and slammed into the wall. That's Irina Scott, PhD, she does, why would, somebody make something up like that? Right. But they're definitely weird electromagnetics and stuff that you would call like poltergeist-like activity. That's
we're the poltergeist. When we start using our abilities, and I have moments where I'm practicing a lot, I go long periods where I just stay calm because I don't want everything going crazy around me. And I turn the volume down on myself. But when I'm in contact with Talata, or I'm searching something out on remote viewing, or even what I call tapping, my abilities amp and things happen around me. And Preston's witness to this. Things just go insane in the house. Doors open and close, light bulbs snap, one phone will ring in the house and not any of the others. It just depends on what's amping around me and what I'm thinking about. I can levitate objects. I can throw them across the room. I can turn the TV on and off. That is a thing. And he is my witness. He's seen it.
Yeah, Dolly visited me in LA once, and I'm like, we're going to go out to eat. And I'm like, my keys are gone. I set them on the table. We searched the entire house. I looked in the garbage. And finally, I looked back at the table after having checked it 10 or 20 times. It was right on the table.
Apport.
Yeah. The key thing is very common, though. Everybody's keys moving around.
Yeah, it's crazy. But we are our own poltergeist. You have in your lifetime, if you think about it, something's gone weird for you somewhere at some time. I don't care where it is, what it is, or why it is, but you've had a moment where something just went, what was that? Did I do that? What happened? A door will slam, a dog will suddenly just run up to you and look around you and go, what? We're all in contact with one another, and our abilities are far reaching. Space and time doesn't exist for us. We're only in a third dimensional space where it does. We can still ability out of that and go into other dimensional space ourselves. And even animals are psychic. They can hear us. They're born with a pineal gland too. If you do anatomy, look it up. It's real. We can all communicate. They hear us. ET pays attention to everything on this planet, including all of the animals. And your ability is amping from time to time. The more contact you have, or the more you think about it, or the more you meditate, or whatever, you're turning the volume up. And things are going to happen around you, especially small children who get really mad at something. All kinds of bad things happen. They say, oh, there's a poltergeist. No, it's not. It's the kid doing that. It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's a symbiotic relationship that we have with these things, these experiences.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's the difference between understanding and accepting that you've got this ability and living with it and being calm about it, and knowing when you turn it on and when you turn it off, or you amp it up or you turn the volume down, and not. It's crazy. This third dimension, I want to bring something up. We live in a dimensional space. We're in the third dimension. There are 2 below us, and there are 9 more above us. And it is important to understand that all the dimensions are in the same spot at the same time. You're in dimensional spaces that I'm looking at you right now, and so we're connected telepathically to one another through our dimensional space. My contact, Talata, is a 5th dimensional being. He is one of the beings that does visit us does have something to do with us. It's very important, their relationship with us. And I can contact him. I've never been able to go into his space because it gets a little weird. They're non-corporeal. You lose all gravity, and your protons all fall apart, and your consciousness is left. That's one of the things I want everybody to understand about being here. You're in a very gravity-heavy environment. You can't see that you're pure light, that your consciousness, all of this is light. It's just condensed into what you perceive as being solid, and it is not. It is all light. And they know this. They're so advanced that they work with us. They understand it. They are comfortable with it. And it's our job to really think about this. It'd be cool if every time I have a moment where I'm making things happen around me, to sit there and quietly think about it for a few minutes and just say, okay, and in that moment, try to do it again. Because that's where you learn to use your abilities. When it turns on and you're amping, go for it. Don't turn it off and be shocked and surprised. Keep going. The bicycle falls over, get up and ride it again. That's what you do.
Good points. All good points. And I'm wondering, too, what do you think about the evolution of the relationship? And do you think some people that will look more alien at some point? Or just what are your theories or views or fantasies about where this contact's evolving, how it's going to affect us physically, if it is at all? Because, there's definitely a lot of things out there.
Well, it is physically evolving, and we are physically related to them. All living beings have DNA, everything, dogs, cats, frogs, gnats, we're all DNA'd up, and so are they. And our DNA is exactly the same. We dime out differently, we dial up differently to look, but we're all basically, the ETs that are contacting us are humanoid. And they have, arms, hands, feet, mouths. They are living in existence like us. They just look differently. And it's because of their environments and where they came from. One of the things that humans have they've tried to teach or leave messages to us about is that we are related to them. They are our progenitors. We come from there. We came here as a choice eons ago, 12,000 years ago, this time around, to have experiences here and to do things and to know our progeny. We're going to be learning from us as well, and we're passing this knowledge down. It is amazing how related we are. One of the number one messages coming from ET, and I'm sure everybody's heard this, every researcher anyway, is they are us, we are them, we are all one. This is absolute. This is one of the most important messages that they can tell us. We are related to one another, and what they look like is immaterial, except for what they represent in humanity, and they are human like we are. Just a different looking type of human. We're all different from one another. We have diversity here like crazy, but we're all Homo sapiens sapiens. They're Homo sapien and a little bit something extra. And we don't know the names that they term for that, or we haven't scientifically, decided how we want to talk about that or catalog it, but we're all together this way. It's important to understand that as well. And they've been trying to show you, when you see a little AI gray, they're sticked in, they're a little, you can turn them off and stack them up. But the others, the tall white, you call tall white or Nordics, the tall gray, you have names for different other ethnicities, Lemurians and Zeta Reticulans and things like that. They are pretty much just like us. They just look a little bit different, no different from how we look from one another.
Yeah, was it Charles
some
Hall
of them use
that had
avatar
experience with tall
bodies,
whites?
and that they may look like an octopus, but you'd never know. I mean, I think that some of them use a spacesuit for the soul, for lack of better terminology.
Actually, Talata uses a spacecraft to get here. Talata is all ET's craft come from the same place, and they're used universally. And each one of them is indwelled by a fifth dimensional non-corporeal being. It's the only way they can get here. It takes that kind of psychic ability to get that craft here, because they're not flying through dimensional, conventional space, time at all. They go outside of the dimensional space and they end up somewhere else. It's very, very technological, and we do not have that ability. We don't even know how it works. We have some idea.
I like what you say, Earl, because we all are basically avataring our own bodies.
Yeah,
Right.
I know. I mean, I agree. That's what Greg Bishop said to me the other day. Was we're all, non-corporeal intelligences using avatar bodies, and yeah, you know.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me that some of the ETs look just like us. I mean, exactly. Which should raise, I mean, the implications of that are mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And yeah, I would underline what Dolly said, because I've heard a lot of contactees say that we are you, or the ETs told them that. We are you are us, we are one. Some variation of that.
It's a good Beatles song.
Yeah.
It is.
I am he as you are he, and we are. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe John Lennon has been in contact.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, Dolly, I have a question, because you said that we're obviously we've been in contact, and we are one, and they've been around for a very, very long time. And according to Bob Lazar, the back engineered craft that they were working on out at S4 they were all from archaeological digs. Are those craft, I don't know if you know or not, were those from before the reboot of 12,000 years ago, or are they more recent?
When a craft goes down and crashes and it totally breaks up, there's no way they can back engineer any part of it. Some craft have what I would call hard soft landed, where the beings inside of it couldn't take the crash, but the craft itself did, and there's reasons for that. And I know that they had a bloody hard time getting in them. You can't, because it's got a field around it. It's impenetrable. You can't get there. And they've held on to those. But there have been some craft buried because they didn't know what to do with it. All the beings died in it, and the craft wasn't taking off on its own, and they buried it. And there have been a couple that they have found, yes. They also figured out how to get in a craft, and it took them a long time, and I'm not going to say how. I'm just telling you that it's possible. And what they do is they actually kill the entity that's holding the craft up. In other words, the indwelled mind of the craft, and to get in it. And it's seriously serious when they do it. And they've done anything in their power, from anything that they've gotten their hands on, to back engineer what they can. They've found three things, and I'm going to bring this up. Bob Lazar backs this up. One is the power source. There's no way to attain that on this planet. None. It's from an element that you can't even get here. I know what this element is, and you can only attain it in the fifth dimension. These craft are manufactured in the fifth dimension. The second thing is that there are no conventional sensors, arrays, leads, bells, whistles, knobs, whatever we use to make things alive and turn on like your car, do not exist on these craft. They're totally psychically driven. And the third thing is that because the energy source for these crafts doesn't come from here, they can't modify or anything. If you want to know why CERN exists, that's exactly why. They've known all this time what that is. They've had clues to it, and they've been trying to build or manufacture this element that they can't do it. Bob Lazar kind of thinks it's antimatter. No. Antimatter can't exist here anyway. We don't have a universe that has the ability for any antimatter to be here. They built CERN. They came up with 7 protons of antimatter. They had it in a containment field, and they winked out because they lost containment. And they're still trying to build them. It makes me laugh. It is serious business when you have AI here, because AI is back engineered from ET as well. Okay, quantum mechanics comes from ET, and they've learned that's why they want to transfer consciousness like an AI into something else. They're trying to do that because they want to simulate how a fifth dimensional non-corporeal being can run one of those craft, because they know they do. There's a lot of things going on around us that you're not connecting the dots to. And it's basically because they run a campaign to blot you from it, that truth. And the only reason I know it is because I've been taught and I'm connected. Okay.
I have a lot of experiencers who are taught by their ETs how to fly a craft. How about, I mean, I've got people that, I had one Marine that was taken through his barracks ceiling and had a kind of a horrifying, experience with his entities. But then, it was followed by these wonderful kind of benevolent things. And he found himself in this blue orb-shaped thing flying over the San Diego Navy Yards, and he knew the area. He was in the military. I had another woman who the same thing happened to. She was over a military base here, She had better experiences with her ETs, but they had her in a craft, teaching her, and if they were fluent with their minds, it was something that you had to learn how to do.
Right. I absolutely fly. I am a pilot. I've grounded myself to bring the truth out. Okay. I've been flying since I was 19, actually. The day after I turned 19, I flew first time on my own. I'm 65 now. I have a lot of experience with this. There is a reason for that. There's a lot going on in our galaxy and the universe, and pilots are always welcome and wanted. And if you have a proclivity for it and they notice that about you, they will offer you that opportunity. There's also another reason, the second reason. We got a lot coming up in front of us, and there's going to come a day where they will land here and pick as many people up as they can. It will be a rescue. And it's better for you to see a human open the door and go, get on now, than one of them. Too many people are still holding on to old fears, and we know that. And it's better to see a human open the door and say, it's really real. I'm just like y'all, and use my own voice, not
right.
And call you up and say, you need to leave now. And trust me, by then you'll be ready to go anyway. You'll jump on board. So that's
researcher Grant Cameron just put out a book called Sky Pilots, where people have learned how to, and he said every single one of them said flown psychically. Which
it makes me very curious, because Bob Lazar said it was element 115, which that was 1989, but it was in CERN where they discovered the particle, but it's not stable in Earth's environment. And so they found it in like 2003, I believe, whenever they actually confirmed that it existed.
Yeah,
so how did they test fly these craft that he was going to witness? If they had to have somebody trained in order to at least get it off the ground to move around if they were test flying them.
Exactly, and they did. The first one that they did was a manufactured one, and they used a different type of radioactive, like a nuclear engine, and it hit them hard. And every last one of them died of horrifying cancer within a few years after the exposure. And they've done many things that have taught them that you need an element that is so stable that it not only when you fire it up, when you start the ignition of that fusion, that it burns itself completely out, that there's no leftover particles from it. And that's 115 will do that. It totally nullifies itself. And it becomes element 116, which is totally inert. And we don't have the ability to create that here. I wish we did, because we could power this entire planet with a little teeny device just like this. No problem. It is serious. There are other ways to power this planet as well. And Greer knows a lot about them. 0-point energy is a thing. You just have to understand how it works and what you have to go through to make that happen. We have a lot of infrastructure here, and it has to be ripped out before they can do that. And that would take a lot. And the powers that be here don't want to do that, because we're on a timeline. We're on a very tight timeline. When I say to you, the clock's ticking for humanity, I'm not joking around. I really hope, and this is my biggest hope, and this is my message to these people who are about to open their mouths. Please understand that all life is precious, all life. There is no excuse, none, anywhere in the universe to nullify a life so that you might survive. That is not good thinking. That's stinking thinking. And you have an opportunity to bring onto this group of people on this planet a way to evolve, and that you have to share in that evolution, and that you have to help provide it. We put you in this power. You're as responsible as anything on this earth, and you will nullify yourselves in ways you can't possibly imagine if you keep going the way you're going. You need to stop. You need to stop now and bring the truth out.
We have just 2 minutes. Any last word from Preston and Earl? Dead silence. It was all telepathic.
An entity, or you've seen a UFO, go to MUFON.com. You're in Southern California, I'll see your case myself. Also, if you would like to keep in touch with me, Facebook is a good way. I'm just Earl Grey on Facebook, Grey. I'm also on, I don't do Instagram very much. Also, you can find, if you want to get a hold of me, earlgrayanderson@gmail.com. That'll get right to me. So
And we'll have all the
Earl,
contact
alien.
points on our website too for you all on Sixth Sense
Oh,
Society.
thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, and it's a joy to finally meet you face to face, Earl, because I've certainly been
I've
watching
met
for a
you
while.
before a couple times, Preston.
Oh,
You just
yeah.
forget. I met you like 8 years ago the first time at the
There you go.
MUFON
Okay.
symposium. Yeah, you spoke there.
Okay.
I mean, I've met you a few times, and then you spoke to the ERT too recently. I was there. Anyway,
Oh, okay.
Well, thank
it's
you.
good seeing you, and good meeting you, Dolly. And thank you
Nice
for
to meet you too, Earl.
everything.
Actually, I'm going to send you some stuff. I'm not kidding you.
Okay, sure. I'd love to see it.
I'm at it. Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone,
Thank you for
and thank
having
you,
me.
Matt.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much for being here. It's an honor and a pleasure to meet you both, Earl and Preston, especially. I've been a huge fan for years, so this has been a dream come true for me. Dolly, it was so good to see your face again and talk to you. It was awesome.
Thank you all for listening in. Join us next time as we continue to explore the esoteric and the obscure together. Have a great week.